The Supreme Court really said, no, we're not done. We actually need more time. Time for what? I thought like we all agreed that racism was bad. Obviously, there's still a ton of racism in America and in the world, but like I thought at least that was sacred, that racism was bad, and you need proper voting maps that are non gerrymandered and actually represent the voting power of the different populations in the cities and in the states. This happened because, from my knowledge of reading these articles, I recommend you check it out yourself. There were voting maps that improperly diluted black voting power, and then they changed it to make it actually in accordance with the census to make it proportional to the black population. And then a group of non-African American voters sued to be like, you're relying on race too much. And then the appeals court agreed, and now it's going to the Supreme Court, who was like, you can use the new maps that you created. And then surprise, 2 black Democrats were elected to Congress. So maybe that's why people didn't want this new voting map to be intact, because they don't like that 2 black Democrats were voted to Congress. But it just makes me think, like, what more information do you need? And also, why is it so secretive, and how do you make these decisions? Because if you're ordering more argument, how much does it take? And I think this is just a broader reflection of how secretive the Supreme Court is. I've come to the point where I don't think the Supreme Court should exist. I think it's ridiculous that 9 to 11 is changed over the years. Right now it's 9 people on the Supreme Court. 9 people who very clearly have ideological lines are allowed to decide cases for the, what is it, 330 plus million people in America. I think that's just crazy. I would love if everything was a popular vote. Unfortunately, that's next to impossible to make everything a popular vote. That's why we have elected leaders to make those decisions for us, but they also screw us over, and they also don't properly make decisions based off the people that they are representing. In school, we learn that the Supreme Court justices are on there for life so that they're not biased, but obviously we've seen from these cases that even though they're on there for life and they don't have a limited amount of time to enact their agenda, they're still gonna do it. I think there should be term limits. I think that Supreme Court members should be democratically elected and not just appointed by the president. That gives the president way too much power. And overall, this shouldn't be a secret. Like when there was the Supreme Court leak about overturning abortion rights, and now that was a whole thing. Why can't we learn more about it? Why does it have to be such a secret? It probably has to do with the fact that all of this originates back when literally slavery was a thing in America, and everything is a secret because that's how you make bad decisions that negatively affect millions of Americans. You have to keep it a secret. But I'm glad to see all those protests, people who are much braver than me who are going onto the streets to protest, because it shouldn't be a secret. It should be out in the front and not in the shadows.